Naturally, over the years, people will ask me what are my favorite cases or my best cases, and what are the cases I would go to the bank with, right, if I was called before a scientific panel. And it's a little difficult to choose, first of all, because there are so many, but second and third, because you have to decide, well, what's the best case? Is it a case that's really well investigated, but maybe not that sensational, but still stands on its own? Or is it a case that has everything going for it? It's sensational, the investigation was fabulous, every possible explanation has been looked at in extreme depth, and we just can't explain it. Naturally, of course, you have to have a case that's unexplained. There are all kinds of fun cases that eventually, turned out to be, well, it could be this, and so, and yet it was sure an exciting case and still might be. So, but with all those kind of caveats or kind of things to keep in mind, I would think that I would like to start by mentioning the Coyne case, which is one that hasn't exactly been forgotten, but it's not always there when people make a list. And I think this case does have everything. First of all, and I'll describe it in a second, but I just want to lay out why it's so important. It has military witnesses who were flying a National Guard helicopter. And there's not just one witness, there's several. Second, it does have a fabulous investigation by Jenny Zeidman. Jenny Zeidman was a student who worked with Dr. Hynek at Ohio State University when she was an undergraduate, and stayed with it and joined the center. And she was one of the best investigators the field's ever had. It also has independent witnesses. People on the ground saw this object as well, and they saw as seeing the helicopter. And it's got an exhaustive investigation that has ruled out basically any other thing. Skeptics have tried to describe it, tried to explain it, and been completely unsuccessful. So in brief, the Coyne case, which happened during that great flap in 1973, involved this National Guard helicopter traveling over the north center part of Ohio, going toward the north. And the guys in the helicopter saw this kind of cigar-shaped thing, which eventually was greenish and glowing, and it came toward the helicopter, not just in 1 or 2 seconds, so they had some time to observe it. And eventually, after stopping in front of the helicopter, it actually caused the helicopter to rise into the air. They did not touch the controls, but the helicopter rose into the air because, of course, they had the altimeter. They could see what's happening. So it essentially took control of the helicopter, or affected the controls, if you want to put it that way, rather than taking control. And all the guys witnessed this, and they all could see it, and their stories are all consistent about this. Meanwhile, there was a family on the ground, close to the helicopter track, that reported that they saw the helicopter, and they saw this green-shaped thing flying right by it at the same, the time and the same place it was happening. So you've got independent witnesses. Again, Jenny Zeidman was the investigator. She interviewed everybody involved. She went to the site. She laid everything out, studied all the aspects of it. And skeptics have tried to explain it and tried to debunk the case by suggesting the best explanation possible, because there's really hardly anything else, is a meteor, a large bright bolide. They're sometimes green. But the sighting lasted too long. The angles, if you do the geometry, the trigonometry rather, that you'll see that the object was close to the helicopter. It wasn't a meteor way up in the sky. I mean, it just doesn't fit. And there is no other explanation besides that. It can't be an aircraft or anything else. It can't be a balloon. Nothing else fits this. And so it's a fabulous case that involves actually vehicle interference, if you want to call it that, but it involves effects on our equipment, an airplane, and it involves trained observers and independent observers and a great investigation. So you can't go wrong on any of those things. In a vehicle interference itself, something that I've studied over the years, where cars are involved, a series of sightings that I think are recognized as being important, and so I would turn to that, even though they weren't well investigated, but because they were so dramatic and so evidential, were the Loveland, Texas sightings from November of 1957, where a number of people on one late evening, early morning in November experienced either their headlights going out or their car engines going out. near the town of Levelland, Texas. And several people were involved over a wide area, not just one area, over, again, a few hours. The Air Force tried to explain it as ball lightning, which is, ball lightning is a real phenomena. Whether it affects vehicles or not, is a separate issue. But the weather conditions weren't correct for that phenomena to occur, and it just doesn't match the reported characteristics of it. So what you have here, in essence, is a mini kind of siege. I don't want to use that word pejoratively, but you had these UFOs, or one UFO, appearing several times in a very, very narrow geographical framework to a number of different people, all independent observers seeing this thing. And there are only a few other cases like that in the UFO field where you've had this focus over a short time period in this one spot. What's a shame, though, and I mentioned it wasn't that well investigated, the Air Force did an absolutely terrible job investigating it, and civilian investigators really didn't get out to the area either. So, but I still put it up there in my, in the top of my list, because, again, it really brought to the forefront this idea in the United States of UFOs affecting, vehicles. In other words, UFOs could have an effect on the environment. And I think that really kind of changed the consciousness of UFO investigators as well as members of the public.